Welcome to Talk Cosmos, the show where Sue Minahan and her panel of guests bring you leading-edge astrology conversations through a journey of soul growth patterns connecting astrology's energetic cycles. Get ready to understand your path in the cosmic roots of the stars.
Hello again. This is Sue Minahan. I'm founder of Talk Cosmos. We've been online through podcasts and YouTube since April 7th, 2018. And this is the Kaleidoscopes panel, and we are celebrating two major transits. One is in Saturn that will be entering Pisces for 2.5 years. It's actually over a 3-year span. And then Pluto, just a few weeks later, that'll be a 20-year span, and it'll be in Aquarius. So with not much more to say, because these are social planets in social signs. Actually, Pluto is not a social sign. It's I don't want to say demolition. It's a transformational energy that is harnessing so many pathways ahead. So thank you for subscribing and for our conversations that have insightful conversations, awakening your consciousness. And now we are ready for Kaleidoscope Visions.
Learning about current transits and exploring soul growth cosmic conscious energies applied to natal transit chart readings provided from the audience. This is your Kaleidoscope Visions panel.
I'm Sue Minahan, the founder of Talk Cosmos, an eclectic evolutionary astrologer, consultant, certified color energy life coach, vice president of the Washington State Astrological Association, member of Kepler Astrology Toastmaster Club, of a Dwarf Planet University diploma and AA with music degree. I love mythology, philosophizing, collaboration. I'm an artist, writer, a perpetual student of life.
And I am John Chenworth, an astrologer from Seattle, Washington. I grew up in southern Arizona and was so obsessed with mythology that I concretely imprinted the Greco-Roman pantheon into my psyche. I still see those gods and goddesses infused into everything around me. My experiences of working with developmentally disabled and resource students for many years as both teacher and mentor has given me a strong compassion for others and has seasoned me with an exceptional reconciling energy. I have more than 18 years experience reading natal charts and continue to enhance consulting techniques by attending workshops and conferences. I use a unique blend of evolutionary, archetypal, and traditional astrological methods to look for themes in the birth chart for us to explore. I also enjoy penning poems and exploring Washington State on road trips.
And like the Sufi poet Rumi says, you are the entire ocean in a drop.
Thank you so much. And for those that have followed us with Kaleidoscope Visions and with Cosmic Collaborations, which was the earlier panel, Amanda Pierce is still with us, but she's on a retreat. People do that, and it's for our greater life force. So she'll be back next month because we're always on the 4th week of every month for 2023. Hello, John. I'm so glad to have you back.
Thank you.
This is
good
great.
To be back.
Yeah, so we'll be a fearsome threesome as we go along. So isn't this amazing? We have two dynamic powerhouses. Saturn, that has been ruling Pluto for since 2008 in Capricorn. Mm-hmm. And in its own sign, ruling its own sign for the last 5 years, is now finally shifting to Pisces.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Which is kind of strange for Pisces to go through because Pisces likes structure and Pisces seems to be the furthest from that. So it's whole new territory for the planet to be in.
It is an oxymoron in a sense, although, as we know, Pisces breaks things down because it's the whole, it's inclusive. So those walls, we could say, are actually getting reformed. Right. It's like a cultural, reset.
Like, where are the walls? Where is the foundation? What are we standing on? How does it need to shift, I guess?
Yeah. And how can the two really work well together? I think, in fact, maybe we can have these slides. Thanks. Here we are. And for those folks that our podcast, it's no, but John Chenworth is Skypath Astro is his website, and Talk Cosmos, of course. And then if you choose to get the newsletter, that's super, and the YouTube. But here we are. Yes, Saturn. So Saturn's going to be on March 7th.
Yeah.
Until.
That's coming up quick.
Yes, it is. Until May 25, May 23rd. And the past years that it's been involved, because its cycle is every 27. It's that cycle. Well, it's a major cycle, right? Our Saturn returns.
29 and a half years, I guess.
Yes.
Yeah.
And so the last one was back in 93, 96. And for those people that want to see it.
I was looking, can we go back to that last slide? These are very interesting to look at, because in the 60s, it was the Uranus Pluto conjunction. And with that, you have Saturn in Pisces, which is like, be careful how you're changing things, I guess. And then in the 90s, I recently, I started binge watching Northern Exposure. I don't even know that program. But
it's about how came out of Seattle.
A community learns to get along together. And that's the last time Saturn was in Pisces. I find that very interesting.
Oh,
they have this TV show that takes that collective idea, and here it is,
Beautiful. Isn't that the truth? That really is. It's a matter of how are we finding the me and the we, using that, and for the connection of the group. It's especially, and I was,
I think recognizing the diversity as well, because they have this cast of all these different characters in this little town. And like, all right, we're going to get along here in the snow, right?
That's
very interesting.
That's so great. Here we have, and this chart is for Washington, D.C., which is the East Coast, represent Canada also, because our guest will be from Canada that we're having today. And for the transit reading that we'll apply this to at the after the half hour. But looking at Saturn, and then we'll go to Pluto at 0 degrees Pisces, March 7th, will be from East Coast time at 8 in the morning, 8:34 in the morning, and actually 35 seconds. So that gives us a Taurus rising, which is really a lot to do about stability and life force. And it's right after a full moon. I was amazed with that.
Like this is going to shine. This is a big moment. And what catches my eye on this chart is all those planets in Aries. So we're going to charge forward anyway into this strange territory of boundlessness, right?
Yes, Chiron in Aries, which is an 8-year cycle, one of the longer because it's so elliptical, and it is identity, finding your identity. So this is another level up in working with that. Yes, indeed. And the values, our belief systems.
Sure.
Yes, that's enormous. Well, Pluto, and not to jump ahead, but birds of a feather flock together in Aquarius, yes. But here in Aquarius too, it is the dynamics. Yes, it's the air sign, but yet Pluto is always that from what the depths coming up like a volcano. So it's a mixed bag.
Transformation.
Yeah, and it will be entering on the 23rd, just 2 weeks later, which is right after the equinox. There's these larger patterns as they fit in that have purpose, as you said, as beginnings, because in astrology, I often look at the spring equinox as that moment of the real start.
I have some notes here. I was thinking about Pluto's transformation, and then I do a lot of keyword stuff. So I listed a bunch of keywords for Aquarius, and so transformation meets progress, transformation meets rebirth, and greatest good for the collective. It's transformation of technology and science, and last, transformation of future thinking.
Oh,
and probably like friendships. If you take that link to the 11th house, a lot of people like to do that with Aquarius, right? Who are we hanging out with, right?
It brings those Yes, that networking, that
Right.
like-minded group to a whole nother level. On the shadow side, we always need to be careful not to make it too narrow. But if we keep the polarity, as we speak with evolutionary astrology, of the Leo, of the heart open,
Right.
then that brings in more inclusivity, which all of this is so important so that we're not just, let's see what the next slide is. Oh,
Here's the
that's
times. Yeah.
true. Because Pluto, when it enters, unlike Saturn, that will be staying in Pisces for its duration, most of it, Pluto, because it is further out, will only stay in Aquarius at the very beginning degree of 0 for 2 months till June. And then it goes just back into Capricorn, the last few degrees until January. But then it stays there for 20 years. However, at that point in next January, it's going to go, it continues to go back to that 0 degrees of Aquarius, which is so incredulous to me, because that 0 degree of Aquarius, which is a fixed air sign, is identical. It's a trigger point, you could say, back to the grand conjunction and all this astrological language. But that's when the social planets, Jupiter and Saturn, connect every 20 years. But within that 20 years, they stay in a certain elemental sign, which was, as we know, earth signs. But as of 2020, when they made their last conjunction, it's going to be in air now for 200 years. And it was
Exactly.
at 0 degrees Aquarius.
Which is a shifting in thought, in a way of doing things, in the way we use our energy and how we deal with our environment and collective thinking. I
Yes.
think it's 2024. These are all happening. Just that reminder, like you said, is going to be interesting to think about.
It is. It's really like looking at a long voyage that we're at ahead of time. We know the ports we're going to stop at. We don't really know all the passengers that are going to be on the ship, but we've never been to these ports. And we don't even know how the ports have really changed from maybe the last time that we may have studied about them. And we don't know what's going to occur as they approach. So it's really moving in new directions. Here's that first ingress, which will be March 23rd. And again, for the Eastern chart, it'll be at 8:14 in the morning also. And this is daylight time, because with our world, we've shifted from the standard time to daylight time. Whoops, what did I do? Oh, I went to Rose. Okay, well, we'll go back. That's right. Let's
Magical
see what
birds
time.
disappearing.
Yeah, exactly. So here we have Pluto at 0 degrees Aquarius for the first time.
And it's
And
what stands out is that I guess that's a quincunx to Mars, that uneasiness, just a little bit. But there's I guess a trine to Ceres.
yes,
So
so what does
good
that?
groundedness,
Yeah, so I would say that Mars is always action, always a motivation, a drive, a force.
Right.
And it is in communication. So they're both air, so it's very mental, like you were speaking of. But the other one that's flowing, because anything in a trine flows, is in how are we nurturing ourselves?
And
Are we nurturing?
and the quincunx puts in that therapeutic note. How are we working with this? Right.
Yeah. And so, yeah, there are a lot of initiatory dynamics. In fact, that flow between our action is actually working with Saturn that just went into Pisces.
Mm-hmm.
So they may be not quite knowing how to talk to each other, but willing, wanting. When we have our fundamental structures or what's fundamental, which Saturn represents, and our drives ahead, when they work together, that's very constructive.
Those light blue marks, those are quintiles, and it looks like there's a lot of them, which is the quintiles creativity. So using a creative approach to all the changes coming. That makes
Yes.
for some really nice adjusting and being able to create.
John, you're so great. I love ping ponging off you because yes, I'm just
Same,
studying.
likewise.
Yeah, I'm studying vibrational astrology with Linda Berry, who now has a quarterly panel called Good Vibrations. She and Richard Smoot are joining. And in that study, which is fascinating, quintiles is the first behavioral energy that we come into, and it's playfulness,
Right.
creative playfulness. Yeah.
It's a fifth of a circle, and then they relate that to the fifth sign, Leo, and the fifth house, creativity. So it has that 5 vibration to it.
Right. So and when we think about indigenous cultures, they all played. It was such a strong feature. And when you were bringing up all those wonderful words, which I think I'll have you repeat, of the energies that Pluto's bringing up, innovative playfulness really is hallmark. So what were those again, if you would bring
For
those up?
Aquarius, I have, progress, and then greatest good for the collective, technology and science, future thinking, and I'm adding friendship, because I think Aquarius is a lot about that.
Yes, thankfully. It honors and values friendship like Sagittarius does too. So there's a hopeful energy as we go ahead. Shall we look at?
I have another note here, just saw.
Okay.
Pluto and Aquarius, how we see ourselves in the collective and what needs to shift.
Okay. Well, here we have our individual, Rose, and her chart with data that she's okayed us to present. And her last name we're just keeping private. But it is December 26, 1993. Just had a recent Saturn return. In fact, it's as we speak, because today is still February.
I think I checked and it's still
26th.
active, right?
Pardon me?
We're definitely in a shadow period of it, so it's still definitely going on.
Yes, because that Saturn return, as we know, that first time that Saturn returns to its natal position at the same point, still expands over a few years process. Yes?
Which also happens natally. Her Saturn is square the nodes, so I think at this time, just moving the soul forward, what needs to be worked on, maybe.
Well, when we say that Saturn, which is energetically wanting to know what is fundamental, and in this case, structures, and it is conceptual in Aquarius, so it is very involved with groups and networking, such as we were talking about. And when we speak of square the nose, which is evolutionary talk, that's like our past, what we brought into this life, strengths, which in her case was in Gemini, so strong communication and strong communication with other people, relationships, connecting those thoughts, but evolving with a strong philosophical viewpoint, which is always going to be changing, because in her chart, she has the powerhouse Pluto relatively close, enough to always ask her, is this all? Isn't there more? Like, is this really supporting your life force? Like, what's the truth here? It's pretty dynamic.
I guess the opposition of Pluto North Node with all the planets and signatures in the 7th house in Gemini. So a lot of Gemini going on, which is collecting facts and ideas. And I like to think of Gemini as the snapshot, whereas Pluto is saying, and the North Node, what are you going to do with all that information? What's the big picture?
Yeah.
What's the movie? What's the big scene? And
What can you dump?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's useful? What isn't? Where does this little fact belong in the whole thing? And is it necessary?
And particularly because Saturn, that is that fundamental essence of what has longevity and making structure, is right at the very base of her 4th No, that's right. This is a little askew. It's actually in the third house. No, it's at the IC, at the very base of her personal self. The fourth house represents your personal self. It's
And
right
even
at
like
that point.
ancestry, right?
Huge. Besides really strong planetary pairs, which is going to be how she presents, which I look forward to our conversation, because just as her sun sign that involves your ego and your whole self, we should really look at some of these other, well, we have a few minutes, but she is motivationally charged with that Sun and Mars united. And then also has her values with Venus, what she's attracted to, what really is going to be working for beauty in life, along with her thoughts. And they're at that last degree of Sagittarius, which is, boy, a lot of strength here.
Those are the critical planets, aren't they? If they're on 29 degrees, it looks like Venus, Mercury. So
just before the solstice, the winter solstice.
Yeah. So in this lifetime, really thinking about what you say, how you say it, and the beauty of words, perhaps journaling, writing,
Another
poetry.
poet,
Yeah,
like you and I.
maybe, maybe.
Yeah, exact. And
I
then
would encourage writing. I mean, or languages because of all the Gemini, and I guess it's a moon in Gemini. So I wonder if there's an interest in languages.
And a very pragmatic mystic soul, having the Neptune in Capricorn, which brings that spirit, that greater than forces, greater sense into some sense of functional usage, structured, that Capricorn has with goals, along with, well, it's what's outside of the box, with Aquarius, not Aquarius, but with Uranus. Shall we go to the bi-wheel? Because we have a few minutes here, 5 minutes actually. So this would be the bi-wheel, folks, with her chart on the inside, the natal chart on December 26, 1993 in Edmonton, with the upcoming Saturn chart. This is a little different than we usually do because we have two. We're going to use Pluto too, but that's okay. It's all important as far as getting an idea. So here, of course, it shows, if people look at the glyphs, that Saturn is just now in her fourth house, having had that Saturn return, as you said, still.
Oh, there I see it. Yeah.
Evolving.
Coming up on Pallas.
Yeah, strategic thinking. But
that's soon.
But it must be somehow very indicative of, on a very personal level, ready to, because Saturn will be there now in that house for the next several years.
2.5 years, whatever it is. And also as it passes through that house, there's some asteroid goddesses. There's Vesta, like what's sacred to you in your home, fourth house.
Yeah, melding, seeing the unity of how these connections are. And also it may relate to personal things with her family, because usually anything in the fourth house, because it does relate to us and our childhood and our heritage, involves opportunity, we can say, to see that reflected in real life.
And you can go deeper. The fourth house, I'm always linking with roots and ancestry. You can do some studies like that.
That's true. Or on the spiritual basis, because it is in Pisces.
Right.
It might be like, well, who are these people who's my family? Well, shall we go to, here we have, did I do the next one? No, I didn't. Okay, Sue. There, we have it with Pluto now. So that would be with the March 23rd. And of course, in some ways,
those numbers, 3, 23, 23, those are very interesting.
Yeah. It's true. Yes,
Interesting
for
date.
the beginning, all the threes, which
Yeah.
again is inclusive. 3 is where you bring the 2 and it's a change factor. You bring that third factor in that.
What is the third thing that helps us see something differently or get along a little better? Or what's another point of view we could have?
Yeah. Now, for Rose, she has Pluto in the first house. And with evolutionary thinking, with her destiny point, the North Node represents our evolutionary. It's the opposite of where we've come from, but it's what we need to embrace. And so it means on a personal level, she's willing or not, well, she agreed, I would say, to be welcoming. Well, whether she welcomes or not, there's a lot of change, personal growth, soul growth. And I know that's an area that she's interested in. And
Pluto in the first may also indicate having to go it on your own and really learning how to thrive with that. Where I'm really going to explore who I am, why I'm here, and what I'm doing.
Now, this particular chart will have 5 more times to replicate itself because Pluto is going to return to the 0 point. And it may be, of course, through the Aquarian energy, because this will be in our 3rd house, which is, how wonderful is that? You're networking, you're communicating with your neighbors and your groups. It seems like a very conducive place to express and change those elements.
Absolutely.
And then, and she is somebody that is interested with astrology. We'll find out to what degree when we talk to her and get her feedback on that. But what I'm thinking is that as it goes forward, of course, how it interacts with other energies in our chart. So this is just the seed point, the first seed point that we're looking at.
Pluto coming up on Hygeia.
Yeah, the health.
That's collective. Sorry, that's not in the natal chart.
Oh, okay. No.
Sorry.
That's true. But I am noticing that in this chart of hers that she has change, because Uranus, the change maker, is right having entered and already has been entering in her 7th house. So
yeah, indeed.
In other words, she's bringing in maybe more astrological people, such as us. I know that she and I, we met at NORWAC last year when I had a trade table with, and NORWAC is the Northwest Astrological Conference in Seattle, Washington. And at that time, I was just advertising this opportunity. And we've waited month after month after month. And here we are finally meeting. And that's several months. So here, that's representative, perhaps, of greater depths of how she's interacting with things.
Looks like Uranus is going to go over the part of fortune. A change in... Oh, that's true, because Uranus takes a little bit of time to get through a house. Let's not worry about that. So
yeah, no, that's okay.
Down the road.
But really, well, we will find out, because a lot of this, as we know, the South Node also is an area that we're integrating and releasing. We're releasing what the shadow parts are, and we're moving ahead into, it's always a balance in life. As we add something, we think something is great and it's wonderful, and then all of a sudden there's areas that it involves. I mean, that's why we do astrology. Well, I'm talking, I don't mean to talk
insights into like the South Node, these habits that we have for many lifetimes, I guess. And sometimes they can override what we're doing and they get in the way, but we need to find those things that we got really good at previously that become gifts in this lifetime. And Uranus right there might bring some surprises, saying, hey, you can do this, and you've done it before, so utilize that.
Yay,
right?
Team. We will return with John Chenworth and myself, Kaleidoscope Visions, Talk Cosmos, on February 26th. And at that time, we'll bring in Rose shortly after we just... Okay, thank you. We'll be right back.
While we take a break from this week's edition of Talk Cosmos, let's take a look at this cycle's archetype. We are currently in the yin period of Pisces, ruled modernly by Neptune, and by Jupiter in traditional astrology of the ancients. By leaving a cycle based on the equality of all humans and brilliancy, Pisces concludes the 12 signs that energetically encompass the entirety of the universe, where humans have no control. As a mutable water sign represented by two fish swimming in opposite directions of the forces of life, we experience in Pisces the collective unconscious energy of the unknown. Intuitive, psychic Pisces completes the seed cycle, initiated with Aries' willful separation from the Piscean womb.
This is Martha NORWAC every Sunday morning beginning at 9 a.m. Thanks in part to Linda Rasmussen at verticalenergyworldwide.com. We cover the world of animals. This week, it's Shelter Rescue Sanctuary.
Talk Cosmos brings you leading-edge astrological conversations with hour-long programs each week on KKNW. The show goes live every Sunday from 1 to 2 p.m. Pacific. Talk Cosmos weekly programs are also available to watch live on Facebook and YouTube, along with daily chats throughout the week on the Talk Cosmos YouTube channel. While you're there, make sure you click like and subscribe buttons so you can get the full Talk Cosmos experience. Or, if you'd rather listen to the show archives with audio only, the entire podcast collection since 2018 is available on most podcast carriers. So, grab your coffee, tea, or kombucha and enjoy the show.
Tell your friends about Alternative Talk 1150.
Hello, everybody. We're back again. And before we actually bring on Rose, I just want to make a brief announcement. And that is that I am part of the Washington State Astrological Association. And that is for those of you that especially that are part of the Seattle area, because KKNW is broadcast out of Bellevue, which is just on the other side. It's sort of Bellevue, Seattle area. So if you are members or want to become members of Washington State Astrological Association, next year, starting in September, there'll be openings for 2 board members. Now, they vote on those board members in June, and they're looking for people right now. So if you're interested, go to Washington State Astrological Association or email me and I'll give you the, info at talkcosmos.com, and I'll give you that email to contact the president, because we are looking for people that are dynamic and are not dynamic, that just want to be involved. It's a wonderful. Well, John was involved for 5 years, and we've been members for many, many years. And every month they have great speakers, and every other month a great workshop. I've learned so much. So that was my big announcement. And I don't think there's anything else except subscribe, because there's always more information on Talk Cosmos newsletters. John, did you have anything you wanted to bring up, or?
I just do consultations. Go to skypathastro.com and we can set something up. That'd be great.
Okay, and I will say that next week we're having Planet Buzz, which is always the first week, and we have Wendy Stacy from the UK. And Wendy is the principal of the International Mayo School of Astrology, and also with the Astrological Association, and been on several times. Wonderful, wonderful speakers. So do join us for that. Okay, well, I have the chart with Rosemary. Hi, Rosemary. We're ready for you.
Hi, hello.
Hi, Rosemary.
Yes. Initially speaking, perhaps, do you have any feedback that you would like to present as far as what you thought? And if you want to look at one of the 3 slides, let me know. But this is your natal, so we can begin there.
Sure. Yeah. Well, I definitely agree. And it resonated a lot when, like that very dynamic soul growth was brought up, as well as, leading a life where I feel very drawn to have a great deal of self-awareness in, the person I choose to be and the actions that I take. Mm-hmm.
That's great. And I had promised others and I forgot. How are you involved with astrology? Because that could be of interest to people too. And it's, of course, important to us to understand, because although we'll talk so people can understand, but you are an astrologer.
Yeah, so it's been a very long journey for me, my journey with astrology. I first got into it when I was a teenager, like around 2010, 2011. And then I had an existential crisis, which I have many in my life, around faith and what I believe in, which I think came up in both of your assessments of my chart, where someone told me, astrology isn't real, right? And I was like, oh my gosh. And I went through several years of just like dropping it and then rediscovering it. And I came back to it again because I believe what's meant for you will never truly leave you. A couple of years ago, so I've been studying it seriously, for the second time around for a couple of years. And last year was my first NORWAC, which was amazing. I loved it so much. I'm going again this year.
Oh, good.
And so I've been offering natal chart readings to a handful of clients, mostly walk-in clients. I for about a year and a half, pushing on 2 years this summer. I, at one point, up until very recently, was working at a antique shop, and I offered walk-in astrology readings there.
Smart.
Yeah.
That's very good, because people are interested, when I think about the old things, and astrology has this very long heritage. We know that it began 5,000 years ago in Babylonia and other places, but of course that was just that it was recorded. There's etchings on, I think, the great horn or bone up in, where is it, 35,000 years ago, that's up in Siberia, or etc. Well, thank you. And your pattern is similar to ours. I think many astrologers walk into astrology and then reflect on it later and reassemble how it works. I did myself. Never fully put it away, but it took me a while until I finally jumped in, because I saw it with a new perspective for soul growth. Yes, John.
Oftentimes it takes that when you're studying anything. I think astrology as well, you can become overwhelmed, and so you'll get all this information or something that you have to step out. And when you come back in, it's found the place where to use it. You know what I mean?
Yes, I know that for myself, it was all cookbook. It was all, which helped a lot understand me, but yet how do I apply that? I couldn't remember all those things. So I would apply with my own basis what I knew. So if I saw somebody that was a Gemini or a Scorpio or with a moon in Aries or whatever, I would think, well, what are they doing and how does that relate to that sign, which was useful. But when I learned the soul growth, evolutionary, it really opened up and learned the dynamics. So what questions do you, with further thought, I know that you did indicate career and soul growth. Do you have any, because with readings, it needs to apply to you.
Right.
What would you like to ask?
Well, for a tiny bit of backstory, with my Saturn return, going exact very recently in the recent past, I had a very sudden and unexpected like a series of events at my place of work that led to me quitting, like very unexpectedly. And that happened, interestingly, centered around the Saturn Cazimi, which was, I think, on the 16th of February. So at the moment, I'm unemployed and I'm looking to figure out what I'm doing next.
And what have you in mind? Do you have dreams of what you would like or experience that you would like to use? Or how would you do some kind of reference? Because, of course, we are located where you are. It's not a major city, but you're close to Calgary, I would imagine. But more than that, we're online these days.
Definitely. Well, so it's been my goal for a while for my astrology to be able to support me full time, which is, it's no easy feat. At the moment, I know of a lot of astrologers who aren't able to fill up their books these days with everybody with the cost of living going up and all. So I'm not sure. I'm going to take some time to figure it out. My plan for the next couple of weeks is to kind of just reset and maybe do a cleanse, you know.
Well, unless John has a thought here, because it is true. It is a challenge to immediately fill in, although it's, who knows the timing involved. You know, the fact is that there's getting involved, whether it's with, getting your name out there to be consultations, because online is definitely one, and websites and getting involved with different groups. But I'm thinking, have you considered, because if we're talking about career, are you thinking of maybe juggling it with something that would bring in a paycheck?
So up until now, it's been just, not so much. I don't know. I would like to make astrology my career or something to that effect, but I do feel like so many changes are happening all around me right now. I feel a little disoriented.
With Saturn opposing the 10th house career, and the 10th house not very active right now, it may be a time just for building, not necessarily making the paycheck from astrology, just putting the stones in place, building the table or whatever. Does it make sense to you? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
And
that
also,
resonates a lot. Yeah, it does.
With
yeah,
Saturn going to that 4th house for the next 2 years, it might be a building time. Take the classes and learn from others and read charts when you can, of course, and always approach it in a professional way, and you'll start building that.
the relationships, it's true. And I'm thinking, immediately speaking, we have Mars in communication, which of course will be changing signs in March on the 25th, I think, also along. And in fact, if we look at the next one with Pluto, yeah, it's going to be on the 25th. This is the 23rd that Pluto ingresses Aquarius. But this beginning seed point is going to return and return and return. A lot of us are going to have a reconnective business, but it's in the 8th house. And it is a very psychologically deep area, but it's also a deeper way of finding out what relationships are really feeding you and which relationships aren't. And I would thinking of with what John was mentioning with Saturn in the 4th of your private self, would that be a time where you might start connecting to organizations on some administrative? Have you thought of getting involved with being on a board?
That's not something, I don't know, I have, and maybe this is the Capricorn in me, but I have some severe imposter syndrome. So that's not something I would really seek out on my own unless it was very clear and obvious that somebody needed help and I could offer in that kind of scenario. But yeah.
What did you mention earlier about the spiritual crisis or something, or?
Oh, existential crisis. Yeah, I go through those every now and again. Probably all the Scorpio.
You have, as soon as you said that, I thought of your Chiron in Virgo in the 10th, which I have Chiron in the 10th as well, which can give you this feeling of, am I doing this right at all times? So with Virgo, that's kind of like a little bit of solid ground, because you can work on things and you can build a regimen, and I think that'd be a great way to develop that muscle where you can stand more on your own 2 feet and feel good about that. Always return to what's the plan at hand? What should I do to build this, or what should I learn next in astrology, and your spiritual connections to astrology? It seems to me like they might be tied together a little bit.
And how can I be of service, which is time.
Yes.
Yeah, which
Service,
does take time. So we are in support. I feel like, listening to John and myself, that of your initial feeling that you need to you want, and you're going to take this time to reassess. That is that inner self. And actually, Saturn in Pisces, that's what it's asking of all of us anyway, really
because, and out of that, to be willing, that the universe has energies that you'll be connecting with, but it takes time to figure out, how can I be of service? That could be a strong part.
That is one of the largest questions of my life, yes.
You have a Ceres in the 6th house, which is the house of service, which is very earth-oriented and very nurturing, having a nurturing approach to it. How does it make you feel good, and is it healthy for you, is a question you could always ask yourself.
Isn't it in Aries?
Ceres and Aries in the 6th, natally.
Yes, right. And I was noticing that too. How do I nurture myself? It could, a thought, because astrologers are often involved with other physical, metaphysical oriented energies, whether it's massage therapy or Reiki, that offer, or hypnosis, regressive. I don't know if you have an education, or have you possibly a 4-year education that you've...
Oh, are you asking me if I've completed college or something similar?
Yes. I'm just wondering if you have I have some education myself. I have not a 4-year degree, so I'm not trying to anything of that sort. But I'm just asking you if you have.
I've had a pretty unusual relationship with education. I was homeschooled growing up, and I don't technically have any official documents to support my education in the eyes of the government. Yeah.
Yep. And in fact, that's many of us. So it's okay. I mean, it's okay as far as I'm not judging. Well, speak less, Sue, get to the point. So in other words, what I'm offering is perhaps there could be some tactile service that would give that nurturing both to yourself and to a career as a stepping stone through, and that would also involve people of a like-minded that would be interested in the astrological growth. I mean, consultation.
Ceres being the gardening goddess, what garden would you like to plant that goes to help support a career in astrology?
Oh, if only I could plant a literal garden. Unfortunately, I live in an apartment building.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I'll go off into left. Should I go into left field?
Why not?
Okay.
No, okay.
Well, I was thinking because you do have such strong. Well, yes. I mean, relationships. I'm thinking with that process, but 7th house. I'm looking at your 7th house, and with Saturn in Aquarius, which is groups and consciousness, that perhaps you're able to help construct through a group wider consciousness, like planting. In my heart of hearts, I used to clip all these articles out, and I remember that there are rooftops where buildings created gardens of food, or in basements, hydroponic. And I remember in Seattle, they had a hydroponic farm that would then, the Millionaires Group, which is the homeless group there, would come and tend and would bring out to different restaurants that were on a scale. I mean, it's all very utopian thinking in a sense, but yet it's grounded. It's in functional, where there are restaurants where have homeless people that have been trained that come in and work to learn skills, and people pay on a sliding scale. I don't know how successful they were, but it's really a great thought. But is that type of thinking that's outside of the box, but yet grounded, and also serving the world at large.
That sounds lovely. Really, that does sound lovely.
Yeah.
Your 2nd house has a lot of planets in it, and what was I going to say about that? It was a really great thought, and it left me. love when that happens.
Well, it's very practical. It's very true. You really are survival instincts. All those are motivated.
And wanting
And
to have a
ground.
strong ground to stand on with all the planets there,
Mhm.
right?
So
That's
Aries,
you always want to have that foundation. So whatever you can do to keep that foundation strong is going to serve you well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
well,
Yeah, you've both really caught me at a time where my foundation is changing all around me. So,
well, in that case, going to the soul growth, which is really so much involved with intention and feeling and affirmation and a shamanic journey of itself, and this is personal, so answer as you wish, of course, do you have, rather than here we've been focusing on the practical, but yet on the growth, the soul growth, did you have a certain energetic direction that you were, or discipline, or if I'm communicating, that you were thinking of using?
good question. No, I would resonate perhaps most with the word eclectic. I like to sample and understand many different points of view, talking about how different worldviews can affect how you interface with your personal world is really, really interesting to me. I resonated a lot when it was brought up at the beginning, the difference between having the South Node in Gemini and the North Node in Sag, assimilating data, but needing to figure out how it fits into the larger picture. That's a journey that I haven't fully figured out yet.
Well, to really give yourself the benefit of any doubt, you have enormous energies that you're trying to coalesce. So it's not an instant abracadabra deal.
Yeah.
And you have Jupiter there right at the crest of your ascendant. In other words, it makes everything big, and it's in a very powerfully deep sign, Scorpio, that's all included with what is giving me life. What is life and death? It's not Mickey Mousing around. You want to know, and you need to know what the truth is involved with things. And it's relentless. You have relentless energies. So be kind to yourself, but there are many shamanic journeys, and there's many groups and paths. Like I had mentioned, Kepler College, for instance, which is not Kepler College itself, but the Toastmasters group, which is about speaking. And we meet every week, or the weeks that you can, because it could be that as a long-term giving, you have communicative skills galore, and of speaking, learning to speak, because whether you do webinars or whether you do the classes or whether you do speeches and whatnot, that's just an idea right off the bat. Now, that's not deep shamanic work, but it's more of the practical that leads towards a skill, just as an invitation. But as
Jupiter is also in the 12th house, which is like your sacred space. And I like that. It looks like that's Juno there, which is having a relationship with that. So putting together some kind of spiritual practice that you can do regularly would, I think, be very useful. Even no matter how big that is, just be able to sit and explore with your imagination what that might be, to sit in silence with it. Or am I making sense?
Absolutely. It's been on my to-do list for probably since last NORWAC, so almost a year. It's been on my to-do list to create a planetary altar for each of the 7 traditional planets, the 7 visible planets. And, I haven't had time, but now I do. So that's the next thing on my list now.
And you could document that. Even however you use that. I think many people, with these changes happening that we're all experiencing, this is a collective. These are very social, disintegrating, decentralizing, recentralizing, if that's a word, that your experience might relate profoundly to other people that have a go-to, creating an altar, of that sense.
Good idea. Yeah.
Well, we have a minute. Thank you, Rose.
Thank you,
Rose.
Applaud your journey. It is very exactly so perfect for the Piscean inner direction that we all need to do. New moons give that chance, of course, and full moons too, vision boards and ongoing process. So thank you. Well, John, you don't need to mute yourself. We have about a minute with our sign-off toggle. It's been a joy. We'll be together again in April. Yes, April with Amanda.
All right. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, we can begin talking about, so now what's it all about? We're in the mix. We're in the soup. We're feeling that so strongly. Oy. Yeah, so that'll be the second. No, it'll be the fourth Saturday.
Yeah.
The 4th. Yes, that'll be March 26th. Oi. Okay. Blessings and love to everybody.
Thank you for joining us on Talk Cosmos, the show where Sue Minahan and her panel of guests connect soul growth patterns with the energetic cycles of astrology. Be sure to tune in next Sunday at 1 p.m. Pacific Time to continue your journey through the roots of the cosmic pathway.